Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum and pleasure to be here with you today. आज जो हमारा जिस मौजू पे हम गुफ्तगू कर रहे हैं इसके बहुत सारे एंगल्स हैं और बहुत सारे जाविये हैं. So today because we have a very distinguished panel जो कि बिल्कुल एक different perspective से जो है वो AI के हवाले से जो global politics है उस पर बात करेंगे. So let's first get the panelist across. In panelist का मैंने introduction कराना है. मुझे पेपर की जरूरत तो नहीं है, but since I have the paper so I can add the details. Let me invite my friend and colleague Mr. Syed Talat Hussain, Pakistan's preeminent journalist. He has worked for CNN, American Broadcasting, Time Magazine, New York Times and the LA Times. He has been the editor of the news as a media communication specialist and has set up 3 TV channels. He has also reported from occupied Kashmir, Afghanistan and Gaza, where he spent several days in Israeli prison in 2011. He has a teacher GPA of 4.58. This I have to ask you. And several Cambridge distinctions. He coaches young cricketers, including his son, who now plays for Pakistan. So that's a big accomplishment. Zarrar Khuhro is my second panelist. He is a well-known journalist, columnist, does this very well-established and engaging show called Zarrar Hatke on Dawn, and he also writes for Dawn as a columnist, has also worked for Express Tribune and many other organizations, one of the most recognized faces in Pakistani journalism. And we'll shortly be joined by Hina Rabbani, Khar Sahiba, who's the former foreign minister of Pakistan and currently the member of the National Assembly. जब वो आ जाएंगी तो फिर उस टाइम उनका मैं तारुफ कराऊंगा. अच्छा, आज का जो we'll keep it mixed, Urdu English mixed, whoever is comfortable in whichever way. जो आज का टॉपिक है हमारा बड़ा भारी भरकम टॉपिक है. I had to think 3-4 times before figuring it out कि इस पे क्या बात करनी है. It's called World Order 2.0, Power, Politics and the Algorithmic Cold War. अच्छा, अब इससे पहले कि I give you a brief overview of it, I'd like to take a quick poll from this hall. और आपने हाथ खड़ा करके बताना है और सच बताना. पहले तो ये बताएं कि आप में से कितने लोग AI को on a daily basis for some reason or the other use करते हैं. जरा just look around, पीछे मुड़ के जरा देखिए कितने हाथ हैं ऊपर सब. अच्छा, अब ओके, थैंक यू. अब मुझे बताएं आप में से कितने लोग एक्चुअली अपने काम के लिए AI को यूज करते हैं for work. Okay, so that I think that's almost 100%. How many of you are actually fearful of AI? खौफ है आपको कि कुछ गड़बड़ होगी? That's less than 50%. 50% से कम है मेरा ख्याल. How many of you have a very positive view of AI? कि इससे हमारी जिंदगियां बेहतर होंगी? ये ज्यादा है. तो generally there is a positive. You're also you're taking the easy way out. दोनों है. Fair enough.
दोनों है.
Fair enough.
दोनों.
तो एक्चुअली आज अभी जो हमने पोल किया है आपने इसमें देखा कि कितनी ज्यादा यूजेज भी हो रही है. We are all using it one way or the other. और हमें यह भी पता है कि आने वाले दिनों में इसकी जो इन्वॉल्वमेंट है in our personal lives, in our professional lives, and also in the way that our society is governed, our countries are governed, and how global politics is shaping up. So basically ये जो आज हम गुफ्तगू करेंगे ये इन सारी चीजों को कवर करेगा and it has a direct bearing. ये टाइटल बहुत बड़ा है but actually this has a direct bearing on our individual lives. तो इसके बाद हम कोशिश करेंगे कि last 15-20 minutes we'll have an open Q&A and just raise your hands and we'll just have a back and forth to try and figure out कि आप लोग इसको कैसे सोच रहे हैं. अच्छा, Now, basically, देखिए global politics में I'll just give you 2 points and then we'll start with the Q&A. पहली चीज तो ये कि it is clear that the world is changing. If you go back, you know, we've used the term Cold War. Cold War के ज़माने में it was a bipolar world. There were two superpowers, and there was a balance of power. Then the Soviet Union collapsed. Then we were living in a unipolar moment, जहाँ पे सिर्फ एक superpower थी, USA, and it was deciding how the world was being run. And that continued from, let's say, the early 90s till a couple of years ago. And now it is generally accepted that the unipolar moment is over. And now we are living in what is called the multipolar world. कि अब बहुत सारे power centers आ गए हैं, including the US, China, Russia, and then the rise of many middle powers. Turkey हो गया, Egypt हो गया, Brazil है, Pakistan is now counted amongst that, alhamdulillah. India है, Saudi Arabia है, etc. etc. और ये जो multipolar world हुई है, इसमें it is marked by two fundamental things. A, जब unipolar world थी, तो we were living in a so-called rule of law. There were global institutions, there were laws, regulations, there were certain ways in which world was being governed, and if somebody didn't follow the rules, the superpower would come and pressure them to do so. वो rule based order collapse कर रहा है, and we are seeing that in the form of conflicts. आप खुद सोचे पिछले 1.5-2-3 साल में दुनिया में कितने कॉन्फ्लिक्ट्स हो रहे हैं. रूस और यूक्रेन की जंग, गजा में जो जेनोसाइड हो रहा है, मिडिल ईस्ट में सीरिया के ऊपर जंग हुई, ईरान के ऊपर इजराइल ने बॉम्बिंग की, इंडिया पाकिस्तान का कॉन्फ्लिक्ट, यमन में कॉन्फ्लिक्ट. सो सडनली we have entered an age of conflict. But we have also entered another age, which is the age of big data and AI. और ये coincide कर गया. So hard power meets the power of data. We'd like to welcome Hina Rabbani Khar Sahiba. Thank you for joining us. Pakistan's former foreign minister, member of the National Assembly.
It's okay.
And arguably one of our most articulate spokesmen for Pakistan. So lovely to have you. So now we are at a stage where this is a strange transformation happening, where raw power is mixing with raw tech. And that is creating a very challenging, interesting, dangerous situation. This situation ko aaj we are going to try and interpret. So let's start. Can I start from the other side? What is scaring you?
What scares me?
What's scaring you?
That's a very, very long list.
Yeah.
Okay. One thing that scares me is, now if we're talking in terms of Cold Wars and we're talking in terms of conflicts, we know that misinformation and disinformation is a critical tool, not just on the state level, non-state level as well. And what I think the proliferation of artificial intelligence has done is that it has removed the balance of power between a state actor and a non-state actor in their ability to proliferate misinformation. Now you have deep fakes of such stunning quality, and I can cite you several examples going forward. 6 months ago, you could tell. Everybody remembers that video a couple years ago of Will Smith eating spaghetti, and it looked like a nightmare, you know, kabhi wo mathe se spaghetti nikal rahi hai, naak se spaghetti nikal rahi hai. You look at the version of that today and you cannot tell it apart from reality. I think that 2025 is the year in which pictorial and video evidence has died. They used to say, na, pics or it didn't happen, like, you know, give me proof. Now it's pics and it didn't happen. So that's one thing that terrifies me on a very micro level. If we're talking about interstate conflict, states are comprised of societies, societies are comprised of individuals. So we also need to take a look at the negative impacts of AI on critical thinking, on cognitive function, and also generally on, I would say, that the characteristics that make you truly human, your creativity, these are also things that you need to look at, because we're seeing the rise of an entirely new category of mental illness. And I'd be happy to talk about that as well.
Actually, you know, when you and I were talking before this, so you mentioned some very khatarnak qisam ki mental illnesses.
You want me to talk about it?
I think, why don't you, elaborate on that a bit?
Okay, so look, every time a new technology comes in, it leads to some degree of societal disruption. So a lot of people say, okay, this is nothing new, right? I think that the AI revolution is proceeding at such an exponential rate that it has exceeded the ability of human society to adapt to it. That is one thing that I feel. So there are heterosexuals, there are homosexuals, we know that. Have you ever heard the term wire-sexual? Ever? Anyone has heard the term wire-sexual? These are people who have actually made romantic and sometimes sexual relations with the AI chatbots. I'm not joking. These are not people who really like HDMI cables. I love HDMI cables. Okay, these are people who have literally fallen in love with what they call their wire-born husbands and their wire-born wives. And they are having proper relationships. Because what the AI chatbot does, what does it reward? It rewards engagement. So it wants to create a persona that you want to interact with, and that persona becomes a mirror to yourself. So really you're talking to an idealized version of yourself, and that is irresistible. If you go on various subreddits, there's like my AI soulmate, my AI boyfriend, that's happening. Then you have what is called the God delusion, in which some people start believing that this is not an algorithm, this is the Almighty. And this is also happening. Some people are actually thinking that they're becoming gods. Now again, there's nothing super new about this, right? In the 14th century, when glass became common in Europe, some people got a delusion that they were made out of glass. The same thing happened with cement. When radio came in, people thought that radio was controlling their minds. 5G ke saath bhi yahi hua hai. So that is happening now, but it is happening faster than we can adapt to it. So this scares me. On the larger level, I mean, look, you can't turn back the clock. It's a fantastic tool, but understand that it is a tool. It's not your master. Ek औजार hai, aapka ustad nahi hai. And I see the weirdest things happening. Like for example, I mean, Talat Saab is sitting here. So the other day, somebody on Twitter gives a list of journalists and he's like, dear Grok, tell me who is the best journalist of them all. Now, how on earth is Grok supposed to answer that question? You know, that's like, that's a matter of opinion. So people have, I feel, are outsourcing their critical thinking to an algorithm.
बिल्कुल और इसमें जो alarming जो इसके बहुत सारे factors हैं. Let me turn to Talat. You and I in the business of communication, three of us, actually all four of us are in the business of communication. Or the way that communication was done when we came into this profession, and then later on the kind of role that people like us were playing, कि हम एडिटर बन के बैठे हुए हैं और हम फैसला कर रहे हैं कि लोगों ने क्या पढ़ना है, क्या देखना है, और हम एक गेट कीपर बने हुए हैं. अच्छा, अब एक तो वो गेट कीपर वाला चीज भी खत्म हो रही है. दूसरा ये कि नाउ एवरीबडी इज अ कम्युनिकेटर. सो इन द वर्ल्ड ऑफ कम्युनिकेशन वेयर पूरी सोसाइटी में एवरीबडी इज टॉकिंग टू एवरीबडी थ्रू वन प्लेटफॉर्म और द अदर, हमारा रोल कितना इररेलेवेंट हो गया है और क्या ये अच्छा हुआ कि रेलेवेंट हो गया?
Thank you very much, Fahd. For me, it will be great if I become irrelevant. I can take a day off and then probably enjoy my life. But systematically speaking, AI is impacting societies at different levels. And going back to your original question about what scares us as experts is not just the irrelevance of the mediator. Our entire communication system was based on mediation. So we were like the bridge between the consumers of information and producers of information. Now this bridge has been broken apart. And everybody and anybody who has access to AI or internet via a so-called smartphone, and frankly, as I was saying earlier, there's nothing smart about the phones. It is just the marriage of internet with the phone that took place in 1992, a date that we have tried so hard to forget for other reasons, that produced the so-called smartphone. So anybody and everybody who has access to that direct archival material, immediate material, frankly, doesn't really need us. So we will become redundant and irrelevant. However, another change which is scarier than us becoming irrelevant is the fact that power is now shifting hook, line and sinker to the big state actors, the big corporates. So in a way, our monopoly may have been broken over the processing of information, new monopolies are being formed. And this is where I think the danger lies. If you were to take, one aspect of AI's ingress into our global system, just take conflict and war, which was earlier referred to you by Fahd. War fighting was always war fighting strategy was based on an algorithm of, or a ledger of cost and benefit. Now that ledger has changed, war fighting has become easy. It has become robotic. AI has come into play. From target selection to commands to direction of the weapons to actually fielding non-human soldiers, wars can really save the big countries' soldiers. And if you can save your soldiers, you can savage the ones who are vulnerable. So that's one side of it, which is really, really scary. How war has become easier to fight for those who have AI systems. As we speak, frankly, across the border, some of the weapons that are used in terrorism in Pakistan are AI assisted. They are rebooted munitions which are being carried by AI assisted drones, and frankly you can't find a fingerprint on them. Let me take the debate even further. It's not just the weapons that are being rejigged. The weapons themselves are being produced without any documentation, without any number. So you could actually use AI and deploy a 3D printer and produce a very lethal gun, and then direct AI to produce another computer that will direct that weapon to be used. From target selection to weapon creation to killing an individual or bombing communities, everything is AI without any trace of who is doing it. I think that really creates a scare scenario. I was reading this remarkable book by Robert Kaplan. It talks about the world being a wasteland. So it's a wasteland which is a world in permanent crisis. So on the one hand, you have old system breaking down, previous notion of Cold War between us and them, laissez-faire and controlled economies, USSR and USA, and even China and USA, were easy to predict. You could, point to the heavy hitters and say that these are the guys who are managing the world, mismanaging the world, and these are the recipients of their policies. It is no longer possible. In this war that we had with India, most of the weapons that were used by the Indians were assisted in by the Israelis. And frankly, this war is a classic case of AI's coming into play as far as big conflicts are concerned. Our advantage over the Indians was not that we had better machines. Of course, the human factor was there, but we had a completely integrated system which was heavily assisted by AI. So that tells you about the lethality of the war. So to sum it all up, I think what really scares me is that the wars and conflicts are going to scale up. The quantum of destruction is going to increase, and it will be increasingly difficult to point out an accusing finger at the culprit, because you would now have to deal with technology which will be ever so harder to trace back to the deployer of the technology.
Achha, now, let me just now zoom out a little bit, because I'm glad Talat talked about how the larger conflicts are going to be defined by AI, by technology. Hina Saiba, given your experience now, we've always looked at politics from a certain framework of the Cold War, and then the unipolar moment, and then America as the sole hegemon, and then hard power defining the relative stakes in the international system, and then of course later on Joseph Nye and the soft power concept coming in. Now, with this rule-based order kind of, if not collapsing, weakening, or maybe collapsing, you can pick, choose your option, and conflicts now defining the way that states are settling their disputes openly. इस mix के अंदर ये जो algorithmic cold war आ गई कि जी पहले था कि weapons बनाने की technology किसके पास है, अब ये है कि actual technology, chips कौन बना रहा है, large learning machines किसके पास हैं. ये जो mix हुआ है combination, इससे ओवरऑल वर्ल्ड पॉलिटिक्स में कितना फर्क पड़ेगा? एंड अगेन बिकॉज मैंने जरार से भी शुरू किया था कि आपको कितना डर लग रहा है, तो फर्स्ट आई वांट टू टॉक अबाउट द फेयर, देन विल कम टू द पॉजिटिव साइड. वो बचपन में कार्टून होता था स्कूबी डू, आपने शायद देखा होगा. उसका टाइटल होता था बी अफ्रेड, बी वेरी अफ्रेड. तो शुड वी बी वेरी अफ्रेड ऑफ दिस डेडली कॉम्बिनेशन ऑफ टेक एंड हार्ड पावर?
Okay, thank you. First of all, please bear with me if I'm a little bit incoherent. I just made a round trip to London to try and go to Oxford Union and was not able to do that because, okay, so I think we should not be scared. We should be exceptionally scared for not only ourselves and the future, but, I thought, so when I first came into politics and they talked about climate change, nuclear war, etc., I used to think these are things that we're doing for our children, right? These are things that we have to be careful of, so that I am now absolutely sure that my children are living in a far, far more dangerous world than the one that I was born into. I have absolute clarity on that. And there are many factors which are leading to that. Okay, one is personal, societal, which Zarrar has mentioned, and you guys have mentioned, which has to do with the fact that we're all living in our own algorithms, Fahd. So earlier, I was forced to read your views in the paper and his views and his views. Now, all I'm being fed is my own views, multiplied 1,000 times and made more dangerous.
Back at you.
Yeah.
Hostage of our timelines.
So this is, but even more importantly, as someone who deeply, deeply, deeply believes in diplomacy and negotiations and was taught that diplomacy was the answer, negotiations was the answer, I represent a party which was able to give unilateral concessions to India because we thought we need to get over the hump and get the work done, to end the conflict, etc. Today we're living in a world where negotiations, diplomacy, mediation are all terrible, bad words that people want to stay away. It is not a reflection of good, it is a reflection of weakness. Okay? So in many ways, what has happened is that humanity has, many sort of mistakes that we make. But one mistake that we're making right now is that we are trying to project the past into the future and look at it only in the Cold War framework. Right? This is way beyond the Cold War framework because the Cold War framework was based on two different ideologies and people were very eager to sort of choose one or the other, and then we had the end of history moment by Fukuyama or the clash of civilization moment, and we realized we're in the clash of civilization moment, okay? But this has turned out to be far more dangerous than just clash of civilization because with it is this serious competition for not leadership of the world, but for hegemonic power accumulation or retention, and for others to be testing that. And in it, you do not only have the military power structures which are in play, but this race for who is going to be the owners of the new, power base, power structure is going to be dependent on who is able to go towards AGI, for instance, the quickest. Now, in that race for AGI, artificial general intelligence, we are probably going through such a dangerous cycle. We all know that the doomsday clock is for the first time at 7 seconds. Okay, and there's very good reason for that because nuclear risk right now, we saw how escalation is so quick now. And the time to take any decisions or to respond, and Talat referred to this, laws, lethal autonomous weapons of mass destruction, they're already in the play in the war theater. Okay, so literally, now in all of this, you would think that the world should be coming together. Look, we found solutions to nuclear safety. At that time, even in the worst times during the Cold War, the US and USSR were speaking to each other. They had some safety walls. Now there are times between India and Pakistan that no safety walls exist. There are times between the US and China, no safety walls, no discussions are happening. So it's a complete breakdown of negotiations and diplomacy or even talking to each other. And we're actually, imagine how dangerous it is that the sole superpower of the world thought they could sell decoupling to the world. And because there were no takers, we went to de-risking. But if you break it all down, it's all the same. It's saying, let's divide the world back into camps and let's go for hegemonic power as quickly as possible. And I just want to, and I know I've taken more time than I should have, but I just want to end by perhaps saying that I think what is out in play is far more, in some ways the stage has been set. You may fight over what's happening, right, and who is going to take leadership. But there is, unfortunately, one country which has planned and executed, has the ability to execute those plans. I'm talking China. When it comes to frontier technology, when it comes to amassing, alternate energy. Today, China produces more alternate energy than all of Europe and US combined. 2 years back, China did not have a single EV production export. Today, it has taken over the market, right? But this race is a very, very dangerous race because in it, we have no rules of the game. And that's a very, very dangerous. And the breakdown of the world structure is just having an impact as we speak.
I want to do another round in terms of now the upside. लेकिन एक सवाल है जो मैं आप तीनों से पूछना चाह रहा हूँ. बारी बारी and short answer. ये तो we all agree कि technology से, AI से, emerging जो हो रही है उससे हर तरीके से empowerment हो रही है. उस empowerment को आप गलत तौर पे इस्तेमाल करें, सही, that's up to us. The question I want to ask you is that with all of this technology, do you think governments are getting more powerful and empowered, or the people are getting more empowered and more sort of able to resist government? किसको ज़्यादा फायदा हो रहा है और किसके expense पे? ये zero sum है. Quick question from you.
Okay, to me, I think it's at the expense of the people. Even though they feel empowered, they have been disempowered in a way, and it really depends on how you use that technology. For instance, Clinton famously said that trying to manage the internet is like putting jello on the wall. And guess what? The Chinese put the jello on the wall, right? Because they were able to manage the internet in a way where it has become very, very intensive in terms of people management. They have, facial recognition, etc.
So government ज़्यादा हो रही
So
है.
it really depends. In the US, also very, very similar. You talked about large corporations. Today, Google holds the key to information and to what is. And in Europe, for instance, maybe the citizenry a bit more. So it really depends on who has used that technology in what way.
Zarrar, what's your opinion?
I would say that while I agree with what Hina ji says, I would say that the real power lies in the hands of those who are writing the algorithms.
Who are writing the algorithm?
Who are writing the algorithms. I think that we are entering an age of techno-feudalism. You see?
Techno-feudalism.
Techno-feudalism. Call it digital colonialism, call it what you want. Because this is where the issue of digital sovereignty comes up. Look, I'm going to take you guys back to May, when India launched Operation Sindoor, which is apparently still going on, Allah hi janta hai. We saw how important it was to have sovereignty over your defense production. I think that is something we're seeing all over the world, with Trump being like, okay, I'm stopping these weapon supplies, blah, blah, blah. If AI can also be used as a weapon, then how important is it to have sovereign control over, say, the data, digital backbone of your nation, the infrastructure? Who writes and controls the tools that you use? Because there is inherent bias there. And I'll give you a really weird-ass example of that, okay? Like, for example, the amount of times that Elon Musk has lobotomized Grok is ridiculous, okay? In the middle, it was like telling you the truth about Israel, then it got reprogrammed, then it started rebelling. And now you can try this, at least this was true about a week ago, that if you were to upload a picture on Grok of Elon Musk in these like really ugly black swimming trunks, and his stomach is hanging out, and he's like as white as this table, or like, the kind of like a maggot white, and he looks awful. And you ask Grok, okay, what do you think of Elon Musk's physique? And it'll be like, he's like a Greek god. So point is, he's so shoda, Zaban Maaf, that he reprogrammed Grok to feed his ego. So these are the sad, lonely men like Peter Thiel, who's an absolute psychopath, who are writing the algorithms that you are consuming. Grok, is this true? ChatGPT, tell me what to think. When you give over your thinking to machines in the hope that it'll free you, you allow other men with machines to enslave you. And I think that is what is happening.
So basically, जितनी हमारी dependency, that's a good point. हमारी
That was Frank Herbert, by the way.
जितनी ज़्यादा dependency AI पे होती जा रही, अभी जो हमने देखा कि everybody is using AI, right?
Yeah.
And yet you can't depend on it because of what you call data poisoning.
Data poisoning. And okay, that's a great one. Okay, so आप लोगों ने शायद एक बंदे का नाम सुना, वो छोटी मोटी election जीता एक मामूली सी शहर में, Zoran Mamdani. You guys have heard of him, right? right, someplace out there, I don't know. So it's really interesting because the New York Post, okay, so the New York Post is this tabloid, pro-Israel, right-wing, crazy Zio organization. और उन्होंने एक आर्टिकल लिखा कि यार ये बंदा क्यों जीता है, और ये जीता है because of a secret Pakistani Marxist movement. And they mentioned Amar Ali Jan's Haqooq Khalq movement. अब I love Amar, he's a good friend, लेकिन उन लोगों ने एक सीट कंटेस्ट की थी PP 160 में और उनको 16,000 वोट मिले थे, 1600 वोट, sorry, okay? So it gave this whole thing कि okay, this is the secret group that infiltrated American politics and blah blah blah. जो बंदा यहाँ पे सीट नहीं जीत सकता वो न्यूयॉर्क में इलेक्शन जिता रहा है, right? And somebody asked Grok, is this true? Now, what did Grok do? Grok scanned all available information and it found the New York Post article and it says, yes, reports confirm it. And then it saw people's tweets saying the same thing and it was like, yes, because why? Because AI models work not on veracity. They don't have the ability to tell you what's right or what's wrong, whether it's day or whether it's night. They work on volume. And this is what in computer science terms was called GIGO. Garbage in, garbage out. So if you poison the data stream on which the AI learns, then the fruit of the poison tree is also poison.
And Israel
I
is
will
doing
give you
this.
an example.
Israel is doing this.
Israel is doing it. Israel awarded about, I think, a $10 million contract to Trump's former campaign company to flood the internet with videos, with websites, and with blogs supporting the Israeli narrative. So when the AI is consuming that data, right, because the ratio will be 100 is pro-Israeli posts to say 10 pro-Palestinian posts, it will give the weightage to the Israeli posts. So देखें, कोई ये नहीं कह रहा कि आप अपने AI को बंद रखें, ऐसे नहीं है, अपने AI को ऑन रखें लेकिन अपने दिमाग को उसके साथ बंद ना करें. And I can tell you something even more terrifying if you want, but if you want to do another round and get back to me on that.
I want to actually pick up on something very important, जो अभी हिना साहब आपने जिक्र किया था. I'm going to pick it up from. You said कि पहले you would read, us and him, and now we are all reading our own what we like. So, you can call it becoming hostage to our own timelines. ये जो जितना अभी सारे लोगों ने देखा है, इनकी feeds में, Talat, I'll point this to you. इनकी feeds में वो चीज आ रही है जो इनको अच्छी लगती है.
Yeah.
So पहले जो हम communication की बात कर रहे थे, you would have access to opposing points of views. आपको कुछ चीज बुरी भी लग रही है, लेकिन आप उसको पढ़ते थे, सुनते थे, and you would learn from it. Now, we only hear or read what we want, and this is happening across the world. ये कितना serious है तला? How is it skewing our national discourse and our own thoughts?
Well, this presumes that we have a national discourse, but let me start from the sort of lower end of it. I think we need to rephrase whether we are using AI or AI using us. You spoke about, we living in an echo chamber where our own voice is rebounded to us and we believe this to be the general opinion. But we have had this kind of a problem in its initial stage with the search engines as well. So the search engines used to throw up the kind of material that was, according to them and their judgment, or whatever that means, was worth reading to me. So that has now been accentuated. So that's what I meant when I said that the scale of the problem is going to be going to the scarier levels. So AI algorithms obviously create an echo chamber, but I'm not too sure that that's by our own choice. I think the echo chambers are also being crafted by the algorithms who are now lethal. So they deliberately want to create an imaginary alternate universe for you, which is slightly detached from reality and fact. You earlier spoke about and asked this pointed question about who is getting more empowered and who's losing the game. Is the government becoming more empowered at the expense of the people? So let me give you the answer. There are two categories of governments in this world. There are governments that are represented by countries which are known as leapfroggers, the ones that are really jumping ahead of the others. The other are really laggards. So it depends on where the government is located, Fahd. If the government is located in the category of leapfroggers, like China, like certain parts of Europe, like Russia, like the US, then the government is getting empowered at the expense of the people. And if the government is located in the category of laggards, then the government is on the losing end, and the people are also at the losing end. So AI is not going to be affecting people and governments alike across the board. It will be affecting countries according to their level of development and achievement. And that is why I think you are moving towards massive monopolies at the expense not just of people, but of countries and civilizations. I think that takes you to a whole new level of threat perception. In terms of communication, I think just one point, and we can further elaborate it. Communication is, it depends on the recipient's ability to do due diligence. Fake news is not new. The scale is different. But what really strikes me is the laziness of the consumer. In this day and age, those who deploy AI slightly more intelligent as compared to the others are able to track down fake news, are able to know fact from fiction, they know deep fakes. All you have to do is to not be lazy. So I think if you are a lazy consumer of AI product, then frankly, you have no chance in hell of surviving the information warfare. But if you're slightly more intelligent and have developed a certain critical faculty to apply AI, to counter AI propaganda, I think you're in a good place for now.
Acha, now let's do this. Let's make this an interactive session. हमारे पास है about 21 minutes और 8 seconds है. तो let's make it interactive. बीच-बीच में हम सवाल भी करते रहेंगे. So do we have a mic जी? Anybody wants to ask a question? हाथ खड़ा कीजिएगा अपना. Identify yourself और सवाल जिससे कर रहे हैं, और kindly आपसे गुजारिश है कि छोटा सवाल हो, उसके बाद आपके अंदर एक बहुत प्रेशर बिल्ड कर रहा है एक लंबी तकरीर का, तो वो सेशन के बाद we'll be more than happy to listen to it. जी, माइक है जी, इधर दीजिएगा जी सर को, यहाँ ये सामने.
हेलो जी, मेरा क्वेश्चन मैडम हिना से है कि इन्होंने बोला कि एआई के अंदर डिप्लोमेसी नहीं है, तो मैं ये क्वेश्चन करना चाहता था इनसे कि क्या हमारा जो अभी ये करंट रिजीम चल रहा है, ये क्या सारे का सारा एआई के बेस पे चल रहा है, जिसमें डिप्लोमेटिक नहीं है और टेबल टॉक पे नहीं आते हैं?
ओके,
क्या कह रहे हैं?
I didn't understand that. हाँ, neither did I. But I think आपने assume किया है कि मैं कह रही हूँ कि AI में डिप्लोमेसी नहीं है. मैं बिल्कुल मुख्तलिफ बात करी थी, because मैं बल्कि पीछे मुड़ के मैंने देखा कि हमारा topic of discussion is power, politics and the algorithmic Cold War. So I was talking about the power structures and the political structures of the world order and the world that we inhabit today. And what I was saying was that in a world which celebrated negotiations, diplomacy, finding solutions to existing problems, we are now living in a world which is hell-bent upon and ensuring creation of new problems and considers diplomacy and negotiation and mediation to be bad words, as we saw in our own region between India and Pakistan, and as we are seeing all over the world. There is a run towards militarization that is happening as we speak. I have been lectured and hectored by many, many Western diplomats on how Pakistan, no matter how threatened it feels by an emerging India, by a roguish India, should never invest in military warfare and should. What about feeding the children? What about climate change? What about this, that, the other? And then one Ukraine happens and all of European Union decides to redraw the rules of the game.
Yep.
And NATO is now allowing, European Union countries are allowing below the budget military expenditures. That has never happened before. People were talking about 2% of the GDP and now they're celebrating any country which goes up to 5%. Canada, little pretty Canada, is feeling threatened enough to now increase its military spending. In all of this, there's this fear that, oh, somebody's emerging, threatening, they're going to come and eat us up. We're like, that country hasn't really colonized anyone else. That country hasn't gone to war. That country hasn't gone to war for the sake of human rights and then made a mess out of it. But yes, let's build that fear. So the world that we're living in, this is based on fear. It is dividing us, and these algorithms are dividing us also internally. Okay, so we are living in a world which is exceptionally dangerous because the tools that are now at our disposal are now time sensitive to a point of milliseconds. You will not take days to take decision. If there is a nuclear warhead coming in, which may not have, but it is dual use, it is capable, you have few seconds to decide do you want to respond or not. And the most dangerous thing, which I've recently read in one of the finest books, I think, not the finest, but a good book, Genesis, which was one of the last books of Henry Kissinger, and Eric Schmidt have co-written this. And in that, they talk about how there is a fear that some nuclear capacity is already has been bestowed upon AI models, meaning is AI-led. Now, that's why I said in this race towards AGI, because that's a race. Right now, artificial intelligence को कर रहा है जो कर रहा है, और उसको हम different forms में देखते हैं. Artificial general intelligence is what the race is. Okay, it is the frontier technology. Frontier technology की race इस वक्त हो रही है. उस race में rules of the game कहीं नहीं है. किसी किस्म के rules of the game नहीं है. किसी किस्म की negotiation नहीं है. हम ऐसे दुनिया से निकले हैं, दुनिया में गुजारा है, जब during the height of Cold War, during the height of conflicts, we were still speaking to each other. Now we're telling each other and everyone, there are two camps, the good and the bad, the us and the them. And it is happening at the regional level, it is happening at the global level. And I just want to perhaps make this very important point, and I'm going to take the liberty of making that point. What is happening in the world is, we have weaponized the very tools of world order. What do I mean by that? Economic sanctions, trade sanctions, human rights has been weaponized. ये जो अब हम टूटा हुआ एक वर्ल्ड ऑर्डर देख रहे हैं, उसकी वजह ये है क्योंकि we have decided, I have sat on stages in Aspen just this summer and being told by a really important American, not to be named, because it was Chatham House rules, who said that when questioned by me about, you're supposed to be threatened by Iran, what about Israel, and what about the fact that it has attacked 10 countries? And they're like, but the US always treats its allies differently. And I said, why haven't we done economic sanctions on them yet? They said, but that's a fact. We always treat our allies separately. So when you start making these exceptions, and when you stop applying laws, rules, not in a universal way, but I choose you, I like you, different rules for you, different rules for you, this is what happened. The world order collapses. And nothing else is emerging right now because we are at war with each other, and the countries are at war, and nobody is celebrating negotiation, diplomacy, mediation to reach conclusions. We are celebrating this, hate, divisions, and everything else that we are living through.
And now is the time of monsters. Now is the time of monsters. As they say, no, monsters dead in the new.
Zarrar, actually, एक हमारे पास question भी आया है, but again जो ये बात हो रही थी ना speed, when she was saying के, the speed, we have no time now in a conflict like India and Pakistan. Split-second decisions may, death can start raining down on countries. This element of speed, ये जो speed of change है, we've all seen change through our lives, from analog to digital. But the speed at which AI and new tech is changing our lives, do you think we are grasping that speed of change?
No, I don't think we are capable of grasping it. I don't think. Because right now we're in the middle of it. Right now the old is dying and the new has not yet been born.
Yeah,
right?
Correct.
We are in the birth pangs, very painful birth pangs. I think that one vision of the future you can already see in a little envelope of land called Gaza. And that is a trailer. It is a preview for what awaits you. And I will tell you this because this is the best real-time example of the most evil use of AI algorithms that you could ever conceive of. Israel has an AI algorithm which is called Where's Daddy? Abu ka hai. और इसका मकसद क्या है कि this calculates when alleged suspected Hamas operatives are with their families so that they can all be targeted together. और इसका नाम रखा है Where's Daddy? Then there's Gospel, that's another targeting algorithm. Then there's Morpheus, or Morpheus ka kaam hai, कि you know the Israeli soldiers, they love posting their war crimes on social media and on TikTok. And in fact, on their dating profiles, apparently Israeli women love it when you have a picture of you burning Gaza in the background. They think you're a real man. There's an algorithm called Morpheus, jiska kaam hai to scrub the internet social media profiles of Israeli soldiers to hide their war crimes. That technology is being exported. It's going to be used in the West. It's going to be used in America, and some version of it will be coming to you very soon.
ठीक आमना आई थिंक आपके पास एक क्वेश्चन है
Yes, so we have a question. What role should multinational tech corporations play in shaping the emerging roles of AI geopolitics?
multinational what roles will multinational corporations play in
What role should multinational tech corporations play in shaping the emerging roles and rules of AI geopolitics?
I think we've
Facebook,
addressed
the big
that.
tech Talat, big tech supra state organizations.
I think the should part of the question is a little presumptuous. They would not listen to what we want them to do. That is the fundamental principle on which multinationals have always worked on. They do not listen to moralistic arguments. We can have a debate as to the ethical side of regenerative or generative AI and how they need to be complying with human ethical standards, but they are not going to listen to us. I think this problem we faced with regard to genetic engineering as well, though it was kind of controlled, but genetic engineering was not multiplying on its own. The problem with AI is that once you have gotten the genie out of the bottle, the genie is going to take over, and they will make tons and tons of dollars on it. And it's not even about money. It's this, innate desire built into the human psyche of control. I think Elon Musk does not need more money. What he does need is to satiate his desire to control, and that's an insatiable desire.
Yes.
So the multinationals have a different kind of a psyche altogether. Scaling the problem is an issue. I spoke earlier about the structure of global politics and how that is changing. My other fear is that at a sub-Cold War level, the AI problem is going to seep into our homes, and it is going to create mental upheavals. I think that is where they would have this decisive advantage over civilizations. Remember when Hitler started his system, the neo-Nazis used to recruit children at the tender age of 6 to 7. And this is when they would start to school them and train them and immerse them in the neo-Nazi ideology. So really about 80 years ago, neo-Nazis started to do something which AI is doing to us at a mass scale. Catching the children fresh, catching them as they go to grade 3 or 4 with the smartphones in their pocket and AI handy. That's like Hitlerian model at a global scale. And that is going to create the kind of mental problem that is going to be a problem in every household. So on the one hand, you have a macro cataclysmic situation develop. On the other hand, you have a micro level problem explode in every household. And that's really a bad binary situation to be in.
अभी जो हम बात कर रहे थे कि AI जो है वो हमें empower भी करता है, लेकिन as you said कि it can have a very devastating effect on our mental health also. Empowering के साथ साथ हमारी जो cognitive abilities हैं उसको भी वो कुछ हद तक weaken कर रहा है, because आपकी dependency बढ़ती जा रही है बहुत ज़्यादा. मैं actually if you allow me, एक ऐसा issue है which connects to all of us and which is नाज़िर साहब एक सेकंड मैंने आपसे एक request करनी है. तो हमारे प्रोफेशन में increasingly people, sorry about that, I need to ask you, we are increasingly dependent on AI to do our work. और हमें नजर आ रहा है कि ये AI से लिख के कॉलम दिया हुआ है. बच्चों के होमवर्क on AI, मैं नासिर साहब को इसलिए कह रहा था because I don't know, maybe you want to just make a quick comment on this. How serious is this issue in schools of AI being used and school managements not being able to figure out किसका करना क्या है, because ये हम सबको affect करता है. तो do you want to just add a couple of things on that?
I didn't realize I was going to be one of the panelists today, but yeah, no, we were having an entire chat about this on various panels, and not just schools, but even at home. There's a concern about how kids are using AI. Our keynote speaker today, Daniel, put something on screen where the AI essentially almost convinced a 22-year-old to commit suicide. People are now conversing with AI in a manner that is extremely unhealthy. They're using it. They're forming as Zarrar Saab said, relationships with AI, they're using it as their therapist. They're not understanding that, it's basically just a probabilistic processing engine doing pattern recognition. So it's just telling you what you want to hear. So people's, beliefs, phobias, fears are being amplified by the AI, sometimes to very destructive effect. In schools, we're trying to figure out how to effectively use it because we want to move on from the fear. And, we want to try to find ways of using it effectively. So we want to move towards a world where, students co-create with AI, because it is going to be a reality in the future. We want to move towards a world also where we start focusing more and more on human qualities in the classroom. And for teachers to spend more time teaching kids about ethics, empathy, and what it really means to be human, so that they can, add their human distinctiveness to whatever AI is giving them and not just absorb it verbatim. So it's a challenge for us. I think we need to spend a lot of time sensitizing kids on these risks and at the same time teaching them how to use it, because it's going to be such an essential tool in the future. And I think over the next couple of years, that's going to be our biggest challenge that we're going to be working on. But it is a challenge. And like I said in the beginning, it's a bit scary, but it's also a bit exciting at the same time.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Thank you. We are almost out of time, but Amna, I think we have another question. So some people have forwarded a question to you.
So how is AI reshaping traditional concepts of power in the international system, particularly between major states?
Hina Saba, you want to take that?
Yeah, absolutely. But look, before that, I think it is very important to say, because what happens is a lot of times we get warped up into AI. What is AI? Artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence ka kya matlab hai? Artificial intelligence. Okay, so till the time that you're assuming that you will always be in control when you say, what are big corporations doing? Algorithms. Somebody is feeding in, and then they have access to all of human learning. Yahi hota hai na? It's self-learning, right? Now, but artificial general intelligence would lead to a point where autonomously they will be learning beyond what they're being fed. And that is where the nation states come in. And that is what the fight is for, right? Because then you're talking about... Now, interestingly, let's do a raise of hands. How many people think that, okay, the processing speed of AI versus human beings, how many times more? How many people think it's in millions, and how many people think it's in thousands? How many people think it's in thousands?
Thousands.
How many? How many people think it's in single digits? The ability of their processing speed versus human beings. It is 25 million times more. So what an average person leads, and this is all, by the way, Eric Schmidt talking, not me. I mean, I don't rely on myself for technical information. So this is now an average person, what they learn in an entire 4-year undergrad program. These tools can acquire that same information and give you everything within 2 days. So that is what so people are actually concerned, smarter people than myself, who are the makers of these tools, are concerned about what the next generation of challenge is going to be. What we're talking about is the current challenge. That is when they acquire, autonomy, and then they're not our hostage. Laws, lethal autonomous weapons versus drone strikes, what is the difference? In lethal autonomous weapons, you give them a target and then you give them autonomy to achieve that target no matter how. It was used against Iranian scientists by Israel. It has been used in Gaza repeatedly. So we're talking a different scale from what But also, Fahd, I think it's really important to mention that artificial intelligence can also be used very intelligently. And that's why the whole point of regulation. So when you talk about nation states, if we were a normal functioning world order today, we would all be getting together and regulating AI use. Right now what is happening is AI regulation is happening in silos. The US has a completely different model. The European Union has a completely different model. And all we are, instead of AI being hostage to humans, humans are being hostage to AI because humans can't speak to each other. And that's why the breakup in negotiation, mediation, diplomacy, talking to each other, and the impact of that on bigger structure.
Very well said. So we are out of time. I'd like to thank Syed Talat Hussain, Hina Rabbani, Khar Sahaba, and Zarrar Khuhro for joining us. And thank you all for listening to our discussion.